Hola, mi gente. MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome back. It's that exciting time of the year again when the long list for the International Booker Prize has been announced. So, I had to come here and react and discuss my thoughts. So, today we're going to give a general short overview of what the Booker Prize is, and then we're going to jump right into the books that are on the list that have been long listed, which is a huge honor. We're going to go over what they're about, talk about my interests, and maybe even predict which one I think will win, at least which ones I think will make it to the short list. Let's get into it. All right, so each year, the International Booker Prize introduces readers to the best novels and short story collections from around the world that have been translated into English and published in the UK and or Ireland. The winners get $50,000, and the winners would be the writer and translator. For those who are actually making it onto the short list, they also get $5,000 whether or not they win. So that's exciting. Again, an honor all the same. So for this year, the selection was made from 149 books that were published between May 1st of 2023 and then April 30th of this year. So some of them haven't even come out yet. They are submitted by publishers. Some of them were released a long time ago in their original language, but the translated version has recently come out within that time period. And for this year, the short list of 6 books will be announced on April 9th. And then the winning title will be announced at the ceremony on May 21st. So depending on how this goes, I will definitely do my best once the shortlist comes out to read those books, give my overview, and predict the winner. But for today, we're going to go over all of them and just talk about what they're about, what my interest is, and maybe try to predict the shortlist. Here are some highlights about the titles that were listed on the long list that I found interesting. So it says the judges' selection features books that speak of courage and kindness, of the vital importance of community, and of the effects of standing up to tyranny. Also, a quarter of the list is written by South American authors with books representing Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and Venezuela. The long-listed books are translated from 10 original languages, including Albanian, Dutch, German, Italian, Korean, Polish, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, and Swedish. What I find so interesting about the Booker Prize is that I'm someone who loves learning about different cultures, and they pull from so many. And like it says here, while some authors and their books might be unfamiliar to English-speaking readers, many are considered to be their respective country's greatest living writers. And a number of the books highlight the struggles of individuals and minorities in the face of oppression. History, both personal and national, weighs heavily on characters, whether as a result of the hangover of communism in Eastern Europe, the legacy of slavery and land theft in Brazil, or the stultifying effect of military dictatorship in Korea. And a cool thing was the inaugural winner of the Booker Prize in 2005, Ismail Kadare, makes the long list again. And 9 authors and 10 translators are long listed for the first time. And another fun fact is that there are over 50 years between the youngest and oldest authors on the long list. And one of the books was published in its original language more than 20 years ago. Here is a picture of the judges for this year, but let us just get into what we're here for, which is to discuss which books have been longlisted and what they're about. So the first book that we're going to cover was written by Andrew Kirchhoff and translated by Boris Dralyuk, and it's titled The Silver Bone. And here's the description. Kiev, 1919. The Soviets control the city, but white armies menace them from the west. No man trusts his neighbor, and any spark of resistance may ignite into open rebellion. When Samson Kolokotch's father is murdered, his last act is to save his son from a falling Cossack saber. Deprived of his right ear instead of his head, Samson is left an orphan, with only his father's collection of abacuses for company, until, that is, his flat is requisitioned by 2 Red Army soldiers, whose secret plans Samson is somehow able to overhear with uncanny clarity. Eager to thwart them, he stumbles into a world of murder and intrigue that will either be the making of him or finish what the Cossacks started. Okay, interesting for sure. This is a picture of the author. I think it's such a cute pic. I don't know if I would rush to read this one. This is a picture of the translator. Again, don't know if I would rush to read it. Doesn't really sound like my speed, but it definitely sounds interesting for sure. Let's move on to the next one. All right, our next read is titled Simpatia, written by Rodrigo Blanco Calderon and translated by Noel Hernandez Gonzalez and Daniel Hahn. Here's the description. Set in Venezuela of Nicolas Maduro amid a mass exodus of the intellectual class who have been leaving their pets behind, Ulysses Khan, the protagonist and a movie buff, receives a text message from his wife, Paulina, saying she is leaving the country and him. Ulysses is not heartbroken, but liberated by Paulina's departure. Okay. As two other events end up disrupting his life even further, Ulysses discovers that he has been entrusted with a mission to transform Los Argonautas, the great family home, into a shelter for abandoned dogs. If he manages to do it in time, he will inherit the luxurious apartment that he has shared with Paulina. Interesting. I like that twist. I like the animal tie-in. Here's a picture of the writer, and here's a picture of the translator and the other translator. Again, it does sound like an interesting read. I did really like that twist that he inherits something if he helps out these animals, because animals are often forgotten about in times of travesty. So I thought that was nice. Will I read it? Will it be high on my list? Probably not, but it does sound like an interesting read. Let's move on to the next one. Next up, we have Not a River, written by Selva Armada and translated by Annie McDermott. Here's the description. 3 men go out fishing, returning to a favorite spot on the river despite their memories of a terrible accident there years earlier. As a long, sultry day passes, they drink and cook and talk and dance and try to overcome the ghosts of their past. But they are outsiders, and this intimate, peculiar moment also puts them at odds with the inhabitants of the watery universe, both human and otherwise. The forest presses close, and violence seems inevitable. But can another tragedy be avoided? Wow. Okay. So this is the writer, Selva Amada, and this is Annie McDermott, the translator. That one actually sounded really interesting to me, and I want to read it. I like the aspect of them going to revisit the past, and you're thinking like, oh, it's familiar to them, but it's like they're outsiders, and there are people who are already here, and there's going to be some type of conflict they're in. I actually found that to be really intriguing. So this one will definitely get added to my TBR for sure, and I hope to see it on the shortlist. All right, continuing on to the next one. Next, we have Undiscovered, written by Gabriela Wiener, translated by Julia Sanchez. Here's the description. Alone in an ethnographic museum in Paris, Gabriela Wiener is confronted with her unusual inheritance. She is visiting an exhibition of pre-Columbian artifacts, the spoils of European colonial plunder, many of them from her home country of Peru. Peering through the glass, she sees sculptures of indigenous faces that resemble her own, but the man responsible for pillaging them was her own great-great-grandfather, Austrian colonial explorer Charles Wiener. In the wake of her father's death, Gabriela begins delving into all she has inherited from her paternal line, from the brutal trail of racism and theft Charles was responsible for, to revelations of her father's infidelity. She traces a legacy of abandonment, jealousy, and colonial violence, and questions its impact on her own struggles with desire, love, and race in a polyamorous relationship. And so here's Gabriela, the writer, and here is Julia, the translator. This one does sound like it will have some unique twists and turns. Not sure if I would rush to read it, but it's something I would definitely get to or like to get to at some point for sure. All right, let's go on to the next book that made the long list. All right, we have White Nights, written by Ursula Honeck and translated by Kate Webster. White Nights is a series of 13 interconnected stories concerning the various tragedies and misfortunes that befall a group of people who all grew up and lived in the same village in the Beskid-Niski region in southern Poland. Each story centers itself around a different character and how it is that they manage to cope, survive, or merely exist, despite and often in ignorance of the poverty, disappointment, tragedy, despair, brutality, and general sense of futility that surrounds them. Here's our writer, Ursula, and here's our translator, Kate. As you all know, stories of human struggle and defiance and living and trying to figure it out and how are we thriving and conceptualizing all of it are close to my heart. So this is definitely one that I plan to check out and hope to see on the short list. Let's continue. Next, we have Mater 210, written by Wang Sokyung, translated by Sora Kim Russell and Young Jae Josephine Bae. Here's the description. Centered on 3 generations of a family of rail workers and a laid-off factory worker staging a high-altitude sit-in, Mater 210 vividly depicts the lives of ordinary working Koreans, starting from the Japanese colonial era, continuing through liberation, and right up to the 21st century. Here's a picture of our writer Wang, and here is a picture of our translator, Sora, and the other translator, Youngjae. As you all may know, I used to live in Korea, so definitely something that interests me, definitely one that I think I'll check out and would hope to see on the short list as well. Let's continue. Next, we have What I'd Rather Not Think About, written by Gente Post-Uma and Sarah Timmer Harvey. What if one half of a pair of twins no longer wants to live? What if the other cannot live without them? This question lies at the heart of Gente Post-Uma's deceptively simple What I'd Rather Not Think About. The narrator is a twin whose brother has recently taken his own life. She looks back on their childhood and tells of their adult lives, how her brother tried to find happiness, but lost himself in various men and the Hagwon movement, though never completely. Here's our writer, Gente Posuma, and here's our translator, Sarah Timmer. This is one I'm definitely planning to check out. This intrigues me at such a deep level. There was a documentary titled Three Identical Strangers that just wrecked me and pissed me off with Yale University to like no end. So there was also a movie that came out not long ago starring Letitia Wright titled The Silent Twins. And that also has to deal with twins and different desires. And I'm so intrigued by this and just the way people's paths differ. And it goes back to the conversation or question of nature versus nurture for me that I've pondered on since I was a child. And the Three Identical Strangers took that and ran with it to the most obscene extreme. But with all that being said, this is something that interests me just on a deep psychological level. So I definitely will be checking this one out and hope to see it on the short list for sure. All right, next up is Crooked Plow by Itamar Vieira Jr. and translated by Johnny Lorenz. Here's the description. Deep in Brazil's neglected Bahia hinterland, 2 sisters find an ancient knife beneath their grandmother's bed and, momentarily mystified by its power, decide to taste its metal. Okay. The shuddering violence that follows marks their lives and bounds them together forever. Ooh, that sounds interesting to me. Here's a picture of the writer, Itamar, and here is a picture of the translator, Johnny. But yeah, as my exclamation let you all know, this sounds so intriguing to me. I like mysticism and I like how people are bonded and what shapes it. So yeah, again, one I hope to read and one I plan to read and one I hope to see on the short list. Let's go on. Next, we have The House on Via Gemito by Domenico Starnon and translated by Ona Stransky. The modest apartment in Via Gemito smells of paint and white spirit. The living room furniture is pushed up against the wall to create a makeshift studio, and drying canvases must be moved off the beds each night. Federi, the father, a railway clerk, is convinced of possessing great artistic talent. If he didn't have a family to feed, he'd be a world-famous painter. Ambitious and frustrated, genuinely talented but full of arrogance and resentment, his life is marked by bitter disappointment. His long-suffering wife and their 4 sons bear the brunt. It's his firstborn who, years later, will sift the lies from the truth to tell the story of a man he spent his whole life trying not to resemble. Whew. Here's a picture of our writer, Domenico, and here is a picture of our translator, Onag. Y'all know me, family drama, and trying to run away from ghosts of parents. Yeah, they got me. I will read it, and I hope to see it on the short list. Goodness, I think that's 5 that I've already said. I might have too many for the short list, but we'll see. Let's go on. Next, we have Lost on Me, written by Veronica Raimo and translated by Leah Janesco. Vero has grown up in Rome with her eccentric family, an omnipresent mother who is devoted to her own anxiety, a father ruled by hygienic and architectural obsessions, and a precocious genius brother at the center of their attention. As she becomes an adult, Vero's needs to strike out on her own leads her into bizarre and comical situations as she continues to plot escapades and her mother's relentless tracking methods and guilt-tripping mastery thwart her at every turn. It is no wonder that Vero becomes a writer and a liar, inventing stories in a bid for her own sanity. Here's a picture of our writer, Veronica, and here is a picture of our translator, Leah. This seems like it would be a fun, good time read, one that I would probably get to at some point in the future, but probably not anytime soon. All right, let's continue on. Next, we have A Dictator Calls, written by Ishmael Kadare and translated by John Hodgson. In June 1934, Joseph Stalin allegedly telephoned the famous novelist and poet Boris Pasternak to discuss the arrest of fellow Soviet poet Osip Mandelstam. In a fascinating combination of dreams and dossier facts, Ishmael Kadare, winner of the inaugural International Booker Prize, reconstructs the 3 minutes they spoke and the aftershocks of this tense, mysterious moment in modern history. Weaving together the accounts of witnesses, reporters, and writers such as Isaiah Berlin and Anna Akhmatova, Kadare tells a gripping story of power and political structures, of the relationship between writers and tyranny. Here's a picture of our writer, Ismail, and here's a picture of our translator, John. So this does sound like an intriguing read. Probably wouldn't get to it anytime soon. So maybe not exactly for me right now, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it on the short list. Let's go on. All right. Our next read is Kairos, written by Jenny Erpenbeck and translated by Michael Hoffman. Berlin, July 11th, 1986. They meet by chance on a bus. She is a young student. He is older and married. Drama. Theirs is an intense and sudden attraction, fueled by a shared passion for music and art and heightened by the secrecy they must maintain, always. But when she strays for a single night, he cannot forgive her, and a dangerous crack forms between them, opening up a space for cruelty, punishment, and the exertion of power. Boo. And the world around them is changing too. As the GDR begins to crumble, so too do all the old certainties and the old loyalties, ushering in a new era whose great gains also involve profound loss. Here's our writer, Jenny. And here's our translator, Michael. That sounds like good old historical drama that you see throughout time. Will I rush to read it? No. Would I probably read in the future? Yes. But that's my thoughts on that. And so you guys, those are the books that are on the long list for the Booker Prize this year. We shall see what it all means, how it turns out. I'm looking forward to the short list. Definitely some that sounded interesting. The ones that I said I hope to see on the short list, I hope to see them shortlisted. But I will come back at that time and let you all know, update you all, see how it goes. Hopefully it doesn't turn out like the Penn Faulkner and my predictions there. But we shall see. That's it for me today. As always, I am MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. And until the next one, please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the very best day of your life on purpose. Peace, o dabo, adios, ciao.